Hello, my friends from everywhere in the world. Welcome to another DevNation Tech Talk. I'm Edson Yanaga. I'll be your host today, and I have a very special guest today because directly from Barcelona, from the beaches of Barcelona, we have my friend Jonathan Vila, and he's going to present a very interesting subject: how to migrate a Spring Boot application to Quarkus. Well, I guess everybody wants to hear about that. Jonathan, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much and welcome everyone. We'll share my screen. Okay, hopefully you are seeing my first slide.
We're seeing it.
Okay, perfect. So let's take off. So I'm going to present this project of migration from Spring Boot to Quarkus. And basically the contents of the talk is, as you can see, well, I present myself, then I will tell you what can you expect from this talk. For those that are not still into the Quarkus world, I will show it briefly. And I will try to answer also why. This is the biggest question nowadays. Why you need to think on migrate. Is it worth it or not? Let's see. Then I will show the migration steps that I followed to migrate this Spring Pet Clinic application into Quarkus. And I will give performance comparative. It's a very shallow performance comparative, but those are simple numbers, but it gives you an idea of the magnitude. And a bit of references if you want to continue with this journey. So I'm the guy in the picture being painted. And I'm also one of the organizers of the Barcelona JAC from 2012 and co-founder of JBC and Conf, an amazing conference in Barcelona each year in summer. I'm also software engineer at Red Hat, and I work on the application modernization and migration team. And here you can have the ways to contact me with my Twitter handle, my email, my blog, where you will find articles about this migration and also other articles about, let's say, test containers, that it is also trendy these days. So go there and check them out. And my repositories about my work at Red Hat or personal projects. Well, what can you expect of this presentation? Well, it's my opinion. It's not a magistral lecture, so I'm not going to teach you anything. It's simple that I want to show my experience, and hopefully I will spark a light in your mind to be curious about this migration and try it. We learn by trying, basically. So it's also something that works. And I expect it's not the way. So I will expect that some people will find other ways to migrate and better ways, I expect. And yeah, just simply is the way that I follow. And the versions are, well, Spring Boot 2.5 and Quarkus 1.7.0. Well, Quarkus brief description for those that do not know exactly what it is. Quarkus, first question, I expect that every one of you knows which is this game because I invested a lot of coins in it. So Quarkus is a Kubernetes native framework that you can use using Java, Scala, or Kotlin. It's always thinking on being compatible with GraalVM and OpenJDK. Hotspot, so you can run your applications on native mode or on JVM. And also using a standard library, so not recreating or reinventing the wheel. So for those libraries that you've been using for quite a long time that are very common to use, okay, let's use them. Do not change anything. So Quarkus key facts, well, it's way faster than the traditional way of creating applications. It's way smaller in regarding memory footprint, for instance. And it's also very focused on being easy to code. I mean, there's no creating new new parts of the language or new things that you need to learn, but being very easy to start coding with it. Obviously, it's open source. One of the things that has amazed me more is that they have very fast-paced releases. So you can expect a release every 2 weeks or any other day. So they are working a lot. There's a lot of people involved in doing an amazing work with it. And a lot of tons of extensions. So nothing, let's say, related with Quarkus, but a standard libraries that you have been using in the past. Now they have been, let's say, adapted for Quarkus, so you can still be using Kafka, Camel, Keycloak, Spring, Vertex, REST Easy. Well, you have here a bit of them, but there's more than 90 extensions nowadays. So probably you will find the library that you've been using. You will find it there. So there's nothing to learn new things. It's about using the usual things. That's the important thing. Just a bit of Quarkus evolution. I want to mention only that, well, it's been a bit more than 2 years, and there have been a lot of releases. So it's only to show you that there's a lot of work being done, more and more, and every day there is a lot of people working on it and creating new releases, fixing bugs, adding new extensions, improving the technology. Well, regarding the performance, these are figures that can give you the idea of which is the comparative between a traditional cloud native stack. Probably we all know which is this one, and let's say the other side of the line, that it is Quarkus with Graal and going native. So you can see that the megabytes is dramatically different, and also with the time of booting and the first response is also, well, it's from another world, let's say. Comparing 4 to 3 seconds to, well, you can see less than 16 milliseconds. So it's super fast. About the migration, now that everyone knows what it is Quarkus, let's talk about this migration that I did in the past, just to check if this was exactly the result that I was going to have. Again, I expect that every one of you knows which is this game. I also invested a lot of money, and I didn't complete the first round. Okay. So my experience working with a Spring Boot in the past, it's been, well, it's easy to develop, and I have to say, yeah, they are focused on creating a lot of things in order to make you easier to create applications. So they just abstract a lot of things, they connect, and it's easier for you. But apart from this, in my experience, we were suffering from long startup times. So every time that we started our application, well, it took a lot. Also with tests, it took ages to start every test. Probably we could do things better, not starting the context every time in every test suite. But the result was that. So time was very hard thing for me. Also, it was creating very big applications once it was built. And one of the things that I don't like is that I don't have control. So there were lots of things happening under the hood. So whenever you start a Spring Boot application and you go to the log, you will see several services being started. Not even you are aware of them. So I was not happy about this. And, well, I read that Quarkus was easy to develop applications. Well, that's good. Also that it was creating fast applications. That's good too for me. That it was lightweight. Okay. It's also good. Not so important, but it's good. But it was also creating GraalVM compatible applications. So they can be now considered as targets to choices to be moved to lambdas or FAS, if you want, and that could mean less money on public clouds if we can convert our microservices into functions that are not going to be 24/7 live there. So that was also interesting for me. So the project that I started migrating was the Spring Pet Clinic REST version. So I decided to take one of the examples from Spring Boot that it was including several libraries that, in my previous experience, more or less are most of the technologies that were used in my previous projects. So it has Spring Data, Spring Web, security, documentation, actuators, Micrometer, CDI, AOP, and Catch. Well, the counterpart is in Quarkus. Well, Hibernate Panache, JAX-RS, Quarkus Security, OpenAPI, Small Write Health, Microprofile Metrics, CDI Spec, the standard one, AOP, there's no AOP, Spring Catch, Quarkus Catch with the Caffeine library. What I didn't migrate was the other two flavors that the application was having for persisting information. It was JDBC and Spring Data JPA. So I focused only on JPA. And JMX also was not migrated because there's no easy port to GraalVM. Okay, so here are the steps to migrate this application. Well, for CDI, instead of using AeroWire, using inject. Easy. With bin declaration, using application scope, and this will define your bins. It also has auto-injection on constructors, and it's lazy by default. Pros, it was easy. I didn't miss any feature. On the contrary, well, in this case, Spring allows you to have bins injected depending on the profile that you are passing on the command line. Well, at the moment of the migration, I didn't know how to do it with Quarkus. So I found a way to do it manually with a config property and then doing manually the instantiation. But it was not a problem with this project because I reduced to one implementation only. And no private members on injection, it has to be packaged at least. With JPA repositories, well, it's a matter of implementing Panache repository, and you will have all the usual methods for managing the persistence. List, find, persist, and delete. There's a particular case on going Panache repository base just because with this project, the ID class was an integer, and by default, in Panache repository is long, so I decided to move this in order to not modify any other class. But that's it. It's a straightforward migration, and there are no query DSL methods, so we cannot use the find, or I didn't know how to do it. The find by name and age lower than 40, but that was not the case in this project. We can use annotations passing the query to the method. I prefer that way. With REST, it's a matter of changing Spring REST into JAX-RS, and it's more or less a one-to-one mapping in the annotation, except for request mapping that you have to break down into the different ones. But it's very easy. It's more a string replace than any other thing. Nothing to mention there. With the security, it's a matter of using Quarkus security instead of Spring REST security. At the moment of the migration, well, Spring has a language expression to allow or reject a role into that method, and with Quarkus, it was a matter of adding a list of roles. I didn't know how to do it using an expression. I didn't find a way to do this with Quarkus. And this project particularly was using persistence for the security in the database. So it's a matter of adding the Elytron security JDBC, and then we will have security persisted. And then just simply configure it with the properties. Yes, as I said before, the Quarkus doesn't have an expression language for checking the role, but the rest was very easy. With CrossOrigin, it was a matter of simply adding these properties to the properties file. The only con is that doing that is global. I didn't know how to do it per controller, and Spring has this ability to do it by controller. But in this project, there was no use for doing per controller, so it was working perfectly fine doing it globally. With the metrics, it's a matter of adding the small right metrics extension, and we will have the system metrics. And if you want to have custom metrics, it's a matter of adding the counted and timed annotations to the custom methods that you want to have the metrics. And the only difference between this and the project that I'm migrating is that Spring allows you to use AOP, and then with a simple expression you can just simply execute a method for lots of methods, and we don't have that with Quarkus. So we had to annotate each method, or something even easier that I will show you later. With the validation, it's a matter of moving from Spring validation to Hibernate validator. It's easy. It's the body of the class is almost the same. It simply changes that coming from a controller advice annotation to implementing an exception mapper, and that's it. It will also use the valid annotation and the constraints defined in the POJO, in the bin. With Swagger, but that's easy. Simply was a matter of adding the OpenAPI extension, and that's it. We already have all the Swagger information for our resources. And if we want to have like the main information for our API, it's simply adding the OpenAPI definition annotation to a class extending application, and that's it. We will have Swagger UI out of the box. If we want to have it on production, we can activate also. And the other thing that I didn't found in Quarkus is that with Spring you can specify the paths that it has to scan in order to add certain controllers to the Swagger information, but not others. So if you want to hide some endpoints, that's the way. I didn't find a way to do the same with Quarkus. It was a global thing. But in this case, there was no such need of hiding anything. As I said, AOP being used for metrics, it was very easy using an around, and as you can see here in the code, with within specifying this repository class, you are covering a lot of subclasses and methods. So this will execute for all of them, and then with this it was creating the custom metrics. We don't have that, and we need to annotate each method. Or in this case, what we were doing this for having the persistent metrics. With Quarkus is even easier. Just simply add this property to the properties file, Hibernate ORM metrics enabled, and you will have all the metrics for the persistence in the metrics output. Even easier. Nothing to mention. I already have said everything about this metrics. With local caching, it's about adding the cache extension and annotate the method. It's more or less the same as the Spring Boot is doing, but changing the annotation. And you can configure all the caches in the properties file with different values for the initial capacity, maximum size, and others. Very easy and nothing to mention here. About testing, well, in this case, for testing the MVC, it's coming from mock MVC to rest assured. Well, you need to write differently the expressions, but my personal taste is that I prefer rest assured. It seems more clear and easy to see and easy to check. The only thing that we can find here is that with Spring code, it was JSON path being used to check for the results. And with rest assured, it's by default we are using gpath, and the expression changes a bit, but not too much. And there's no way, or at least I didn't know how to do it, to test roles, the validation of roles for the execution of methods. So I had to create a user belonging to a role and then pass the user to the method. I didn't know how to pass directly the role and check if the role was doing fine. About test resources. So in this case, it was using an H2 in-memory database. So it's a matter of adding Quarkus test resource, and you specify the class, and Quarkus will start this resource for your test. And with the properties in the test environment, everything is connected and working fine. So it was not a big deal. With mocking, the same. It's very easy. Just Quarkus JUnit 5 Mockito and dependency, and then inject mock annotation, and you can work with mocks as you were used to. But now we have reached a point when I say to you, forget everything. Nothing of this will matter after this slide. Now you have come to the right place and the right moment. Let's use Spring extensions. So if you are using Spring Web, don't touch your REST controllers. Just simply use the Spring Web extension, and if you are not using any corner case, that's it. Quarkus will do the job for you. Don't touch your code. If you use a Spring dependency injection, the same. Don't touch your code. Just simply use as it is, except for if you are using something that it is not covered. But if that's not the case, then you don't have to touch anything, and Quarkus will do the job for you. With the Spring data, the same. So don't touch it. Check for the features not supported in each case, but if you are not using them, you don't have to touch those classes. Just simply change the dependency injection, and Quarkus will do all the work for you in the build phase, and you will have a Spring application being ported to Quarkus and directly to native. Easy. The Spring security, the same, and in this case we are even having expressions allowed in the methods checking for the role. So even so, it can be easier than that. It's direct. Okay, so once we have all this explained, I will show my numbers. These were my numbers with those three cases. Using, so in the build phase, Spring Boot takes 4 seconds, Quarkus takes 13 seconds, on GraalVM it takes 135 seconds. Well, in fact, for me at least, it's not super important, the build time, and the build size. But in the boot phase, we are coming from almost 7 seconds for starting the application to 2.5 seconds on Quarkus on JVM, and less than half a second on native mode. And you can see also the memory footprint is coming from 600 megabytes to 21. So now you can really and seriously think on porting your applications or your microservices into the fast world. So using a function as a service, because probably those numbers are already interesting with for doing that. And that's been the migration, but I think it's important to give you these references that it will help you in your journey, because I assume some of you are going to migrate. You can find here the GitHub repository, so the original Pet Clinic application, and the migrated one to Quarkus, and the links to the Quarkus webpage, Quarkus Twitter handle, super interesting developer.redhat.com application website, where you will find a lot of trainings there, and the mailing list where the Quarkus team will be more than happy to answer your questions. About the tutorials that you can find in the developer Red Hat, you can find several using this platform called Katacoda. It's a very interactive one. You don't mess with your laptop. It's everything in the cloud, and you will have an editor. You will have a terminal. You will code your applications, and you will see without problems of versions and libraries and so on. It will be super easy. And you can check Prometheus, Hibernate, streaming for Kafka, Spring Depths, and well, the most basic one. Also, the cheat sheet from my colleague Alex Soto, that it's published every time that a new release is coming out. You will find a summary of changes, and it's super interesting to check the new things that are happening in the Quarkus environment. The code.quarkus.io page, where you are going to start in order to create your application, selecting the different libraries, and it will create a zip file with all you need to start coding. And also, I'm very happy to introduce MTA or WindUp. It's an open source application that you can use to analyze your applications in order to check which are the things you need to do in order to migrate from A to B. It allows you to check different migration paths from Apache Camel 2 to Apache Camel 3 to Monolith to Cloud Ready to WebSphere to EAP and others. And also, it will analyze your application, and selecting Spring Boot as a source and Quarkus as a target will give you which are the things that you need to change. As you can see here in this screen, it will show you which are the number of story points estimated and the number of incidents depending on the level of the issue. You will see different incidents grouped by category and the different issues with the files affected by the issue. And once you enter into the issue in the file, you will see the lines that are giving this issue. So you will see very easy which are the changes that you need to do in the files that you need to modify. Also, it will give you a brief image of the libraries used by your application. And even you can use a plugin to check your source code directly from Eclipse or VS Code. Also, when you have time, I would recommend that you check these real use cases from different companies that already have migrated from Spring Boot to Quarkus, and especially the Vodafone one, that they migrated Spring Boot microservices into Quarkus. So it's very, very interesting to see. And that's it. That's also another game that I expect all of you know, which is this one. And thank you for being here, and I will be more than glad to answer your questions. Here you can find the way to contact me if you have questions or if you need any help. I will be more than glad to help.
Awesome. Thank you, Jonathan, for the amazing presentation, and actually had a lot of questions on the chat. I tried to answer some, but I left some for you too. So the first one, let me try to scroll here. Yeah, Luis is asking, can we use AOP with the Spring AOP library in JVM mode instead of the native mode?
As far as I know, yeah. When you are in JVM mode, well, there are a lot of things allowed, but obviously you are not going to be able to go to native.
Okay, so it's possible to use the Spring AOP extensions on Quarkus? I'm not certain about that.
I'm not sure. I haven't tried. I think that it could be, but I haven't tried. I'm not certainly.
Okay, that's a good point because I never tried either. So, and Andres is asking, because you presented two different scenarios, and on the first one you were migrating the Spring security annotations and configuration, and then on the second part you said that you don't need to change anything at all. So can you explain better this situation?
Well, yeah. In the first scenario, it's about changing a Spring to another standard library supported by Quarkus. It's like rewrite your application. On the second path, it's using the Spring extensions, so you will have your Spring code still in your project, but you will not have the implementations on runtime coming from Spring. Quarkus will translate this everything into the Quarkus, let's say, needed artifacts on runtime. So it's like source code on Spring mode, runtime on Quarkus mode.
Okay, so both should work, right? It's a matter of taste. You can change the code, or you can use the Spring compatibility layer.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, awesome. And let me check here. This one. Oh, and about the use cases that you presented in your slides, are they using it in production? And if it's in production, are they using JVM or native mode?
Good question. For the Vodafone one, as far as I know, they are using it in production, but they are not in native mode. They are in JVM mode. Probably it's more like a mind decision about, well, probably a first step is going to JVM mode using Quarkus instead of a Spring Boot. And then the second movement is to go native. And once you have everything running on JVM. So I assume the next step for Vodafone probably is going to be going to native, but at the moment is in JVM mode.
Amazing. And do you know anybody using it in native mode in production?
No.
Okay. Good. And I think last question, because we're already on top of the hour. So Uni is asking, is there a WebSocket in Spring Boot app? Can I port a WebSocket endpoint from Spring to Quarkus too? Does it work?
Good question.
Yeah, indeed, because we know that Quarkus supports WebSockets, but yeah, I guess the question is if you had this experience.
No. I didn't port it WebSockets, but yeah, as you said, it should be covered by Quarkus, but I don't have experience on porting it.
Amazing. Okay. Well, I guess it's about time to finish the stream. Thank you very much for joining us, Jonathan. I'm pretty much sure that the audience was amazed because we had a lot of discussions, lots of questions, and I hope we were able to answer most of them. And if you're watching the stream, thank you very much. Remember, every Thursday, 12 p.m. EDT, EST, we have another DevNation Tech Talk with many different subjects. And I'm sure that you enjoy subscribing to our channel and following us. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like us here on YouTube. And see you next time.
Bye.